Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help with part 2 of creating the best audio company. So let me just proceed to the point 11 here. I would like to see more companies skipping the middleman, creating a better price market, a lot like Tecton speakers and some few other companies are doing. I just find it so silly that we're using so much of our money on basically funding the other guy's loans so we can give it to a store so this store can pay tax, so everybody can pay tax. Of course we should pay tax. Of course we should do everything that's legal. No doubt about it. But why are there so many people on the chain that are just like pointless to what you're getting as a product, you know? And I think Tesla set a really good example of producing a product that you can buy off the net. We need to get more companies in that situation. It will help reduce prices by a hell of a lot. And of course, demoing the gear would then be a lot more difficult, dealing with RMA requests, repairs, and stuff like that. It becomes a lot more difficult. But I still think it's the way forward how we're gonna sell more equipment. But yeah, it's still also nice to have stores that get more filled up with people, so we don't just have like a handful of people visiting one store in a big city, or like two handfuls of people in another store in another city. We need more people interested in hi-fi, and for that to happen we also need to focus a bit on this market where we're selling directly to customers. So and we just need this type of sound where you go to a random place, you play some random music, and it just it just hits you emotionally, so you just want to cry, and almost become embarrassed listening to music in front of others. That's what it takes. I've experienced that a couple of times at friends' places, but that's because they use so much time on tweaking the gear and modifying it and all kinds of things like that. When you use thousands of hours on doing that, then it becomes a lot easier. It's of course more difficult, but we need to close the gap so that you can't buy a piece of equipment and then it sounds I don't know, 5-10 times better, that exact same equipment at a friend's place, because he used time on properly pairing everything together and it was broken in and everything. We need to make that happen, because currently we're only working in the I would say 5 to 20% of its full potential of the current gear that we have on the market. That's already pretty crappy. We're only working at about 5 to 20%, and I would say that even the really good gear on the market, when you demo it, you're only working at around 5 to 20% of what it's really able to give you. So like with me and a few of my friends, I mean, we're ultra audiophile nerds, and we're like in this territory, 50 to 95%. And I know this to be a real thing, because I've heard that same gear at shows, in stores, and at my friends' places, and it's just a totally different world. So we need to figure that out. We need to figure that out, so we enter a store and it just hits you and it's like, whoa, and then you're already thinking about pulling out your wallet and just like throwing money at the staff, like whoa, whoa. That's what we need to do. And I think we also have to like consider silver plating wires in transformers, if that's possible. I'm not an engineer, but if that's possible, why not try and do it? Well, anyway, silver plating all the other wires that we are creating, most of the other wires. So why not do this? I think it would create a lot more, much more lively sound, and I think we could probably do something like Macintosh does. Put asphalt around it, I think also other manufacturers do that with their transformers. Put asphalt over it. In some way, it suppresses the sound, but in another way, it also creates a very black background. And I think that in connection with that or some similar application, we could also learn a lot from using this new carbon technology. You know, apparently it has a really good what do you call it, property of dissipating heat and conducting electricity. So we need that more. I hear more and more friends buying cables, putting it on, saying like, "Whoa, this carbon jacket just sounds fantastic on this cable," or if I burn it on, or whatever. You know, we need to we need to use this material a bit more. It's not being used enough in the hi-fi world. And this is just like a personal thing that I would do if I had a lot of money. I would chase this amplifier here, Macintosh MA7000, and I would like look at the design, take it to a company like Audionote or some other company, and I would get like, you know, all these things done to it, so that I would like transform it from a class AB watt amplifier to a class A, so it releases the sound a lot more, and put like an O8 inlet R plug, you know, that's like this here over here. Replace that with O8 inlet R, and just to wake it up and make it more magical, and just put some Audionote silver plugs and Sogon silver cables and silver fuse, you know, and then replace all of this, just silver all over the place, but like the highest quality silver. I think that would just sound amazing. I could be wrong. And then I would get them to remove all the equalizer function and the sensory feelers for the speakers so they don't get overloaded. Just remove all that stuff, you know, that to create more reaction, more drama. And again, you know, external clips, you know, these things here. These things here, that connects the preamp with the power amp. You know, just don't do that. Just have it internally, a lot more efficient. But yeah, I get it. You know, it's cool that Macintosh does this. You kind of understand why they're doing this, and it's kind of neat that they're one of the few ones that still does this. And again, silver transformers, Audionote, much better response. It could be fun. It could be fun to see if there's like a company that would would do that. Some kind of niche, expert, custom-made company for people with a lot of money. I mean, if I had a lot of money, I would like to try and do that. First of all, buy this, hear it as it is, and then after that, make it like a total modification of it while still playing to the Macintosh sound. It could sound possibly horrible, because it could be that you have to dial the sound back in order to listen to it, so it actually sounds good. I could be wrong, but you know, it would be nice if a company like that existed. And I think that we need, again, carbon technology in capacitors, electrolytes, cables, plugs, batteries, transformers. And I just hear from friends that it's slowly getting to the market. It just takes forever. And tube LPSUs for streamers, for all kinds of devices, clock boxes, SPDIF converters, whatever. That would be nice. That would help the streaming market a lot. And I think that we're also at the same time really blind in the market where it is right now, that we think that the streamer just does all the sound stuff and then the DAC before it gets to the amplifier. No, it actually starts before the streamer. When you're dealing with routers and switches, they are basically killing our sound before it even gets to the streamer. So we need to develop, and my friend did this, we need to develop, you know, sophisticated power boxes, battery boxes, stuff like this, perhaps tube power supplies for these things to tame that noise, to get that clock properly working, and to give us that really really high quality of sound. So um, and again, a lot of people will probably think that I'm insane from saying this, but LAN cables, network cables, they work. They actually work. But the ones that you buy in the stores are like horrible. And even the expensive hi-fi ones, I mean, they make a difference, without a doubt. They give you more detail, but again, unnatural, unstable, bright, two-dimensional in sound. I've heard some proper LAN cables that even haven't been released to the market yet, and this is like a big worry. This is actually controlling a big part of our streaming sound without us really realizing it. Just by having a really good LAN cable and not doing anything with your streamer, you can remove, like, I don't know, 1/8 of the noise that you're hearing, or that unstable volume, or that plasticky sound that just pumps sound out in the room. You can remove a lot of that by just putting a really good LAN cable on. And I'm not talking about like going from a Cat 5 cable to a Cat 8. I mean, that's a bit cute, in a way that it solves the problem if you find some specific cables, not necessarily expensive ones, but we just need to focus on quality of the wire, and the plugs especially. They're just not good enough, most of them. So we also need to focus on that. And I think that it's very easy to make a really good piece of hardware, put it on the market, and just not have it like couple properly with other stuff that's not from that brand. So I mean, it's just because there are so many different sounds out there. So let me just give you an example of that. I previously mentioned this in a video, and I said that my friend who has the audio, what's it called, the Yamaha system with the monitor audio speakers, he borrowed an AudioNote DAC 2.1 signature, and he thought like, wow, this really makes the instruments a lot better. And he got this like black background, which is like his hi-fi fetish. He's really into black background, so you can't hear the noise and all kinds of other stuff. I get it. I'm not quite as much into that as he is, but I get what he's saying. But then he noticed that when he had that DAC compared to his own DAC, the sound, it was not just about the information being there and then that you could hear more of it. It's the fact that it was blossoming, that it had its own life. It was beautiful, it was magical, it was relevant. Everything you listened to became relevant. And he just noticed that, wow, this really did a big difference. But he still decided not to buy it because he realized that he would just not get all of the detail that it had to offer unless he would change his whole system to AudioNote. And even with the best gear, shit like that happens. It's annoying, and that just kind of irritates me. Because it gives people the impression that good gear isn't good. So when you want good sound, you have to almost decide from the start, where are you going, what are you going to do, and like, are you going to do this 110% or are you going to do it 10%, And a lot of people, they're going to go for price, so they're probably only going to do it like 10, 30, 40, 50% because they got all kinds of brands mixed up. So yeah, it just kind of annoyed me, knowing that this is basically one of the best DACs in the world, but he would still want to listen to his own crappy, like $100 built-in DAC in his Yamaha receiver, because he could create that same effect by, making a streamer that was just like a lot better, so he didn't feel that he was missing out on this. No, he's like the only person in the world. Perhaps my other hi-fi friend could also do this, but it just annoyed me. It just annoyed me really a lot, knowing that this situation could still occur with the best gear in the world. Um, so yeah, it's just like I said in a previous video. When you're developing the best sound in the world, you're taking it up to a level where you're not speaking a lot of languages, but you're speaking like a few amount of languages at a very high level, so not a lot of other stuff can like follow it and work together with that type of sound. So interesting, also frustrating at the same time. So I just want to say that I find it funny though that companies make gear that is so bad that it actually ends up becoming very popular and a lot of people liking it. And I find that to be the case because a lot of these products suppress certain aspects of the sound, making the product totally dominate a sound. And then perhaps making a system go from like very dark and muddy to suddenly sounding very clear and separated. But this is like the problem with a lot of those products on the market. People get used to this. People get used to something suppressing something else to get a certain type of detail. And I've heard this so many times at friends' places where they had like a really crap old big B&W speaker or something similar like that, audio vector, Dun Audio, whatever, something regular, and really old, like 15, 20, 30 years old. And then they just put like MIT cables on it. And yeah, it suddenly it made the sound digestible and the information was accessible. But the quality of that information wasn't really that good. I mean, we could hear more stuff happening and it was cool for a while. But like with anything in life, there is just like this period of like, whoa, in the start, and then it kind of fades off for like, I don't know, after a couple of months, and then you're like, then you want a new high. And I feel that's how the audio world generally works. Also heard this several times with VDH cables, Fender and Hook cables. I had so many Fender and Hook cables. Totally messed up my sound. And yeah, at the time, it solved the problems where I was looking at a certain area and saying, okay, I want a bit more middle tone richness, a bit more bottom end. I want the sound to settle a bit more, be a bit less harsh. I got all of those things with VDH cables, but I didn't realize that when I stuck in that level of gear where that solution worked on a surface level, overall it hurt my sound more than I realized. And I had to leave that class of sound to really know what I was dealing with. So frustrating. It's not just MIT and VDH, it's basically the entire industry works in this similar fashion. So let me just get over to another thing here, and that is that if a company could turn up at a hi-fi show and like provide an optimal room for their gear, and then having broken in all the gear beforehand, I think personally that a lot more hi-fi gear would sell in the stores. And they're like a lot of reasons for why they're not doing this, because it's just very impractical and time consuming to do this. And I just can't remember the amount of times where I listened to gear at demo rooms where there was sound, but it was just so, like I always say, irrelevant, empty, and not caring that like even some of the best gear that I've heard before just sounded wrong, almost like it had a disease, and going like, oh, I'm dying, just letting you know I'm dying. It's just so much gear that's like in this apathetic, gray, numb, where everything just sounds the same, basically sounds the same. And when you're stuck with gear like that, of course, you're then listening to certain types of music that highlight certain details in a certain way. So yeah, I even heard Steve Guttenberg and a lot of other audiophiles, even including my friends, mention this a lot. And I just find it funny that it just keeps on happening again and again for almost all companies at these shows. So yeah, odd how stuff like that happens. But um, I feel that we need more companies that can create a line of sound where, like with audio note, control every single component by themselves from the ground up, meaning that they do their own boards, their own soldering tin, their own cables, their own plugs, transformers, everything. So they like have a continual sound that gets repeated on every single product, and that they then, I didn't write this down, and then they then focus on making a certain sound, not making it compatible. Too many companies are working on a versatile and compatible sound. That's like, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. You want to please everybody, but doing that is just gonna make you temporarily sell a lot of gear. A lot of people will like that. That will save a lot of money, but in the long run, the company loses a lot of money because they might sell a lot of gear to please their investors, but you're not gonna survive and like raise the overall standard on the market by doing that. So no, don't do that if you can. And I just want to say that I've experienced at my friend's place that there is this new breed of streamers that's about to enter the market, and I just feel that when and if that hits the market, that's just gonna like change the world totally. From when like we had the iPhone 1 and it got released, I think around 2008 or 9, and I hope that this really will contribute to the hi-fi world, so that we just raise the standard of dead sound, because there's just dead sound all over the place, like everything is dying, and doesn't care about you or anything. And I just hope it happens, and I hope we can learn from this and use it on our CD sound. I also just want to mention that I'm glad, having looked at Macintosh and Past Labs the last couple of years, that they're actually learning from their mistakes, like many other companies, but still some few aren't. That, if you go with proper plugs, not only does it look better and so it becomes more presentable, the product, but it makes the sound better. So good job to Macintosh and Past Labs for realizing that the sound that they had before was very bare bone, metallic, like with a lot of their lower class gear. And I really think that they've done a great job raising the standard that way. But again, at the same time, they've also introduced more circuitry, so I don't like that so much. But yeah, good, mostly good. I would also say that when they went into the market of transistor tube sound and got this hybrid sound that they call it, I haven't heard it myself, but I heard it from friends that's a very interesting sound where you get like both both sounds of both worlds in one. So I think that most companies should try and consider doing that, just like Macintosh. And I think that this would be like a really brave thing for Macintosh to do, but make like a Class A transistor amp that does not have an equalizer. I think that a lot of people will certainly, that aren't Macintosh fanboys, would realize that, wow, this is a lot more pure, this is a lot more released, this is a lot more real. We want to try Macintosh. We want to get into that. I think a Macintosh could sell a lot more if they did that. And companies like YBA, they have like a really good cheap amplifier model. I think it's the old one called Heritage A100, and it's only like, I don't know, $1,000 or $1,500. I mean, if they could create a design like that and then just run it in like Class A instead of AB watts, that would also be cool. Because I've heard that at friends' places where they took something like a Sugden or a, I don't know, some random brand like Pass Labs or something like that, and they made it run in Class A, and suddenly it was like, whoa, totally different sound, a lot more natural, a lot more released. I think a lot more companies should make like a special edition Class A amp out of their transistor gear. And in regards to like R2R DAC design, I feel that we're kind of fooling ourselves believing that the current DACs on the market are like worth anything. I mean, of course they're like good value when you look at like stuff like Denafreps. I mean, it's good value in that class, but it still comes nowhere near an AudioNote DAC or a really good M-Labs DAC or, I don't know, Negra or whatever. Doesn't come anywhere near that, but it's just, I think that we should, get into these proper resistors, use some proper resistors, use some proper transformers, not take so many shortcuts, and that would help the world a hell of a lot. And I think if we could also somehow figure out learning how to put these special LPSU boxes, connecting them to our existing amplifiers, CD players, DAC switches, stuff like that, we could somehow bypass the built-in clock and modify our equipment more so it isn't so locked. I think that would help us a lot with selling equipment and make it a lot more fun. So going into 26 here, point 26 is that we need more companies like Isolate making some of the best power boxes on the market. And it's just because the designs are just so much more simple, efficient, real in sound, because they just have a much better build quality. So I think that the market in general are just creating this like hyped up sound that locks everything and puts it on a certain path, showing you a certain angle of the music. And it just becomes not natural and not believable. It's just too good to be true, because it's held in this artificial grip. But I think that we can make it better, a lot better. And these are like the things that I was considering. Let me just give you guys a quick look of what it is that I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the Isolate Mini Sub-Axis box that I own here. I used a lot of time figuring out what would be the best box for me. And I tried so many boxes, AudioQuest, Gigawatt, Isolate, many other boxes. And I always came back to this box, realizing that, this is just the most real stuff on the market. But then looking at the parts, I just realized that, wow, this is a really short signal. And when it's a short signal, if you just put some parts that are a lot better than what's already in it, don't get me wrong, these are good parts compared to the standard of the market. But you could like make it so much better. Making the best gear on the market a lot better. So yeah, I mean, we basically just do an AudioNote on the whole thing. Put all the AudioNote stuff that they usually do, and of course it will sound better. And I think that a lot of powerbox manufacturers, they don't realize that a lot of the solid core technology that they use shoots power out, and it creates a sort of like a firing gun or cannon type of sound where it just goes like doof, 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 doof. It goes out in bursts, and it doesn't have this like natural, loving, fully reactive type of sound. It just goes in a certain way, having a certain personality, doing a certain type of thing. and just everything just ends up sounding almost the same when you have a design like this. So I personally experience that, especially when you're dealing with solid core cables that are very thick. That locks the sound. You can get away with solid core cables that are very thin, like a bit like Nordost does with their cables, their top cables. There you can get a lot more away with it, but there will still be some restriction and some unnatural movement, and it would just have like a personality disorder when we're listening to sound. It's not going to be like the real optimal solution. So yeah, especially capacitors, resistors, stuff like that. And also, like basic stuff like power plugs. We're still using brass, nickel, low quality copper plugs as the base part of the plug, and then just like putting some shiny silver on it or rhodium or whatever, and we just think like, okay, that's gonna sell. That sounds good. That creates a more glossy, impressive sound, and you can always hear that when you haven't got a metal that is pure from the inner core to the outside, that you're going to lose a lot of that volume control, a lot of that natural part of the sound that makes you want to turn it up and just listen to all kinds of music. So I noticed this several times getting cables made from friends, that there is a huge quality to that we're just lacking with our power supplies. Even our existing best power supplies on the market, they could gain a lot. I mean, if you just took like these power plugs here and replaced them with OIAD inlet R here, and then like Futek NCF right there, that's like, what is that? I don't know, 200 pounds or something like that. Then everything here is covered, and then suddenly you have like the best, or probably one of the best boxes in the world, suddenly performing 2 times better just by changing the plugs. But the reason why it's become so reactive is because the signal is so short. If it was done in a normal design where you had all this bad cable muting the effects of the music and just giving you the pure effect, no music, there would only do like a small difference, and it could potentially make the sound worse, because then you're highlighting like the bad stuff, making it even worse. So yeah, everything's relative. And yeah, like just returning to my big rant here. I think that's kind of the problem where the hi-fi world is at. It's capitalism. It's not. I'm not saying that we should go with communism. I'm just saying that it's the money model that drives everything, that makes us have to put 1/10 of the money that's invested only in the parts, meaning that you buy something that's $1,000 in the store, and they only put like $100 of components in it, and that's what I think that we have to kind of figure that out, how we can avoid that from happening, so we don't have to, like, when we do what's really optimal, like I've just shown you guys, that's gonna end up costing as much as a medium class car. We need to somehow figure this out. And I think that slowly we are doing this in the hi-fi world. It's not like we're back in the Stone Ages. We are slowly getting there. I just want us to get there faster, and just like get into that insane level of sound that we're still far from. And what more? Yeah, I think that just generally with all our products that we have on the market, amplifiers, DACs, CD players, cables, power boxes, I think that we're creating a lot of models that aren't a hell of a lot better, where I think we're focusing too much on the marketing part of the product, and we also kind of have to do that. We can't just stick to the to the old models, a bit like Spectral is doing. I mean, they're like the best in the transistor world, but to the outside they just look like they're in the Stone Ages, because they they haven't really released a new product the last 20 years or so. Maybe released one product or two, but yeah, we need to improve the quality of the stuff, not just invent new ways of pumping new gear out to the market. So I think like the unofficial rule of the game is to make a more efficient design that looks and feels good, but it only makes sense on a technical level, so it can be sold to you. But I think us pros that have been in the game for a while, we kind of realized that we've already passed the level of diminishing. I wouldn't say diminishing returns. I would say the level of where it was best, and I think that's like perhaps a couple of years ago. And what we're doing now is just basically like almost going in the reverse direction, where we're just adding ice to the cake, making everything compatible, giving it a lot of features. And I think it just destroys the entire sound, because we're just adding too much to the signal. So because of that, when you do that, you have to constantly like revolt the signal and have so many things talking to each other that they end up acting as a sort of a feedback. So you don't have that direct response. So yeah, when you have direct response, you also need, like, because you have a shorter signal, you most likely also need a higher quality of parts for that to happen. So it's kind of, weird. So it's a bit like, like we're moving back in time and almost going towards our ape ancestors. That's how I feel it, almost. That it just becomes the new standard. I've noticed this throughout time, that people get used to like a new standard of things, and it's because it's new and it can do more and it looks better on paper, that people are going to do that, and they're going to forget the good stuff from the past. And it's a point that we all have to kind of really understand fully to overcome, because everything in life is basically a matter of the path of least resistance. It's they also say that on Shark Tank and all kinds of programs, that you take the path of least resistance. You take the thing that does for you seem like the right thing to do. But I think that's the lesson to learn, that doing the right thing is often the most difficult thing you have to do in order to get to the really good sound. And I think Audino is a great example of that. They're just, going insane in this direction, doing what needs to be done when nobody else has the balls to do, or only some few companies have the balls to do. So we need to do this. We need to beat the money system and somehow create a sort of a money model that supports quality instead of satisfying our investors. So and even the best companies do this to some degree, just a very much smaller degree. So yeah, I just want to kind of say that the intention of this video was to give like the market a fair chance of fully understanding the true lack of quality that exists many times, not always, not just with products, but the environments that we use them in. These are things that I've learned, that I hope that all companies on planet Earth will take into consideration, so we can all own more gear and better gear. I don't think we need to live this minimalistic life where we all have like an Apple device and a Netflix account and Amazon services interlinked, and work through the clouds and stuff like that. I think that we should go back, go back to the good old values and do what's right, and not just what's easy and makes us get a lot of stuff that seems good because now it's accessible and now I don't have to go there and do this and that. We have to go back in time in order to go towards a better future. So and of course, you know, there are things from the past that are crap that we've of course improved upon. You know, so I can't just generalize everything and say that, you know, the past is a lot better. So notice that this is just my humble opinion, and this is just like, you know, like with all of my videos, that's how I feel. So yeah, just giving the entire world like a huge amount of value there. So this will I hope this gets into the hands of the right people, and yeah, they will have a look at this. This is basically the future of the hi-fi world, how it needs to be. So let's all make this work together and create a better sound together, all companies. And yeah, hopefully more people will then join the audiophile hi-fi world. This is me logging out.